Hi, welcome back to Stock Talk. This is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So today's lesson, I want to talk about your ABCs, learning the ABC pattern, and I use it in the lower time frame. I mean, it can happen in any time frame, but what I'm looking at is the different ways an ABC can develop in the shorter time frame and the smaller time frame to really help you identify and to be able to compare against your indicators. So let's just go to the agenda. So yeah, we want to start out with the higher time frame and make sure we've got a good looking momentum characteristic pattern in place. And then during the pullback phase, we're looking for an ABC to develop. And I'm going to show you and go through a few examples of this and also how you want to compare it against the ADX and the MACD in these situations. And volume is also another way you can do it, just to be sure that you're finding and really improving your timing. So there's a few things we want to be looking for, and we're going to go through that. Then we're going to go through the stock requests that came through. So let's go ahead and get going on this lesson. Okay, so I'm going to start with a chart of Palo Alto Networks with a weekly chart on the left and a daily chart on the right. And what we want to do is just make sure we're tracking the ABCs on the lower time frame. This can be really helpful, and it's extremely important when you're comparing to your indicators, because price is what we're using to compare with. It's not like we're looking at just the indicator and figuring it out. We have to look at price and then see if we're getting confirmation or if there's some form of non-confirmation in this process. So let's just look at this first pullback. We get a move to the upside. We get confirming ADX strength, confirming MACD strength, and then we actually get a pinch play here that develops in this. Notice how the volume pattern. You see how we had strong volume on the way up and then light volume during the pullback. All right, that's what we want to see. All right, so on the upper time frame, we get that, and then we get a simple pullback. Now, a simple pullback on the higher time frame tends to be something that's a little bit more complex on the lower time frame, but it takes a different shape every time. So in this case, we were at a new high and we just went straight down on this time frame, but then we had our move. So this can be considered the A here, this decline, and then this is the B here, and then this move here was truncated, right? Instead of going to a new low and making an ABC down, we made a higher bottom, but it's still the C. Okay, so I'm looking at this as my ABC in this corrective pattern, this pullback to the 18 in this case. We still got our pinch play. We still got good momentum. Look at the green DI. So when this comes back up through here, it is sort of refuting what we're seeing on the lower time frame. Meaning, if this is turning down, we make a lower low, right? And then we make a lower high, and then we make another lower low. That's really, that's bearish. That's turning down. That's a signal to the downside. But we don't do that. Instead, we make a higher bottom, and as soon as we take out this high here, we're looking at a failure. It's essentially a failure of the decline. Instead of breaking down, it fails to break down, and it turns back to the upside. All right, so it's a failed sell signal is the way I would look at it. The 18 crossed down below the 40, but we never got an ensuing decline from there. So this move back to the upside is really our signal to get long, coming back up through the big round number at 200. Now, when this is pulling back and these are dropping, we want to be watching the strength of these decline, and that's going to tell us. But we've got to compare these key lows. Let's just use another example. I want to use RDN. So on the left side, I've got this strong move to the upside, confirming MACD. I get a pinch play. Look at the strength of the ADX. Look at how the DI line comes back and holds at 25. So that's our simple pullback here. Simple pullback. All you're doing is going up and pulling straight back. On this time frame, we come down, we rally up, and we go to a new low. All right, that's our classic ABC. So that's the A, this is the B, this is the C. Okay, now there's a little bit of overrun here, but not really that bad. And look at how there's almost no selling strength whatsoever. You see this decline? There's no real strength in the decline. So you've got a couple ways you could do this. In this instance, because there's not significant overrun, and we did go to a new low, and the trend line is parallel to the 18. You could use this trend line as an entry signal. You could also be watching for a big green bar, which happens to be coming up through the 18 after undercutting this quick bottom here and turning back to the upside. The other option is to wait for a little bit of a hitch like this and getting long here. So everybody's got their own way. This would be the most aggressive entry, in my opinion, is coming up on this big green bar here. The second entry would be essentially the next day crossing through the downtrend line. The third would be making this quick higher pivot low and getting long on this. So that's really your entry. And then 4 would be waiting for a full confirmation and then getting the second pinch play to develop here with true strength on this time frame. So then we've got the same thing essentially happening in 2 different time frames. So all depends on how aggressive you want to be. And everybody's got a different personality. So I don't want to dictate and say you should be getting long here, because someone could get it long here and be very, very uncomfortable. And then there's others that would be incredibly uncomfortable waiting for this signal, right? So it's all got to work for you, whatever. And I've done all of these different. And what I have found for me, that somewhere probably the second entry is almost always the signal that I like. I do in certain instances. I will like waiting for, a higher low. But in this case, because there wasn't much overrun and there wasn't really any selling strength, I'd be probably watching this pretty close as it's coming back up through here. And you also got a big green bar on this time frame. Let's look at another example. So we get a move here and we go to a new high, right? We make a move here and then we get a pullback. Look at the strength and confirmation in MACD, making a higher high. Look at the ADX crossing above 25 and green DI. Nice volume pattern too. And then we get our simple pullback. Now on this time frame, we go down, we rally up, and then we come down, and again, we make a higher bottom. And actually, the MACD is making a slightly lower low. So we got our reverse divergence. Look at the lack of strength in the sell side after we showed a massive amount of strength on the buy side. So the bias is up. All right. Now, because we don't go to a new low, in this instance, I'm in all of these different triggers I've defined in my course. If you go through the course, it gives you, there's 4 different main triggers, and I give you, kind of where all of these are in the course. But in this case, I would be using a horizontal line coming back up through here, and that would be the trigger to get back in on this pullback. Now, what I want to do is actually show a few stocks right now. Let's just look at Apple. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got a simple pullback on this time frame, but do you see the difference in the way this is pulling back? You see how violent it is? You see the size of this bar? Look at this move here. Look at how red DI has already popped well above the highs of the last green. Right, so I know from the onset we've already got MACD, crashing down through the 0 line. So it's possible we could still form some kind of an ABC pattern, but I'm not. This is so early I have no interest in buying this pullback. This is not a good pullback in my opinion, at least not right now. It's going to need to prove itself on the lower time frame by making some form of a reversal. Now, it might do something like this. If it makes a lower high and a lower low, what's that going to happen? It's going to turn through the 18 on this time frame, so there's not going to be a signal. It's going to take a lot more time. And that's kind of where I'm leaning on this, just based on the size of this big, ugly bar. Now, look at something like Oracle. Oracle made a huge move as well, but look at the difference in this. So we had strength to the upside with nice confirmation, but look at the way this is pausing. This is almost like a pause and not even a pullback. And then we go here and we get, basically just a horizontal consolidation from the initial decline. I mean, you could actually say we did something like this, but we're not going to a new low. We're kind of just walking sideways here as the MACD comes back down to the 0 line. And look at lack of strength. Look at the volume pattern. You see the volume strength here and then no sellers coming out. So a lot of buyers went in, but not a lot of sellers coming out. And you can see that there's a high correlation between volume and DI lines, right? So if the red DI were popping up, we'd be seeing volume spikes in the red on the downside, right? So we don't have that. So this is something that I probably when watching, there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could either draw your downtrend line, since this is at the at the zero line, or you could do a little bit more conservative approach and use a horizontal line. Now, I would recommend the horizontal line if this stays low for a longer period. If we end up staying low for another week or two, then wait for the horizontal trend line break and don't use this downtrend line break. If it turns from here, I mean, it's something you could consider just based on what's going on here, and we don't really have a low ADX condition yet. We're getting there, and again, if we spend another week in this position, then I'd probably wait for a horizontal break coming up through 120 or so. So I want you to start thinking about these and recognizing the importance of an A, B, C pattern, okay? It sometimes they take the shape of a higher bottom, sometimes they're a lower low, but when we make that lower low, we want to go and compare the ADX, compare the MACD. Are we showing improved strength in the decline? Or, like, in other words, more selling strength in the decline? Is it stronger? If it is, that means we don't need to be in a hurry. If it's weaker and the pullback is weaker and there's no sign of strength, then we should be ready for some kind of a turn to the upside. I think this type of information can be really helpful for you if you're playing a pullback. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. And also just want to mention briefly that my services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com. If you go to the services page, you'll find my trading course. It's actually 2 courses now, so I call it Trading School. And also, you'll also find the individual package, which has about 2 to 3 reports each week, plus a special video for that package. Now, if you just want to start out with the book, I am offering that at a discount through a PDF format. So you can go to rabilstockresearch.com/book to find that. All right, let's move on to the stocks now. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the XLC because I think there's something interesting developing here. If you notice, we had this beautiful pullback to the 18-week for the first time after the big decline, and essentially what would have been a 2 entry, breaking the downtrend and then getting the 2 right here, and it was a pinch play on the weekly chart. Now, if we look at what this has done since that time, we have not come back to test the 18 this whole period. It's been several months. And even on a daily chart, we have this long trend. This has been above the 18 has been above the 40 for quite some time, and we've had several pullbacks along the way. And we have not been able to break the 18 on the daily chart. Now, we're starting to see the MACD will give off signals like this where it looks like there's divergence, but the ADX has finally dropped down below 25 in this move. So when I see that, I want to start taking a harder look here. And if you notice, what I consider a break of a moving average is when you close below the moving average and then take out the low. We did not do that here. Here we didn't even close below the 18. Here we closed below it, but if you notice, we never took out the low of that bar. We turned right back up. Same thing here. And now we had another close. So if we can turn back down and break below the low of this bar before we go to a new high, then I would consider this to be a break of the 18 on the daily chart and confirming what we're seeing on a momentum basis. So I don't just look at the momentum and say, oh, I want to be a seller. I'm waiting for price to confirm. So we haven't had that confirmation yet. It's possible this will keep going. But the first time we get a divergence in the MACD that's confirmed by a break of the 18-day, then I think we're coming all the way down to the 18-week. All right, so that's how I'm looking at this. Obviously, this morning we're getting a pretty good move to the upside. We'll have to see if that can hold. But interesting in the way this is playing out. We're finally starting to see signs where the momentum is dying out, at least on the daily chart. Now, if we look at the weekly, this has a lot of most strong momentum. So I'm looking at this as just being a pullback and not the start of some big prolonged correction. Okay, look at this transports. I just wanted to point this out. This is a solid looking chart. Look at this sideways consolidation with a rising 40. So you got a sideways 18 and a rising 40. You came back down to the zero line on the monthly chart. Look at the breakout on the weekly and look at what's going on a momentum basis here. You see this confirmation on a MACD and an ADX basis. So any kind of a little pullback, I think, would be real attractive here. Now, we're starting to overrun the 18-day. So that could set up a little bit deeper correction, a little bit deeper pullback. And I'm going to show you a couple of the airline stocks that are, I think actually I'm going to show you DAL. That was one of the requests. And if that pulls in a little bit more, that could look really interesting. So we'll go into that in a little bit more depth. But I would start to watch some of these transports on a pullback, especially the ones that have broken out. Okay, SMH. So I just wanted to do a few smaller ETFs just to get an idea of what's taking place in each industry group. So I look at this and I see the daily breaking the 18 and the 18 is rolling over and now we're back below the 40. Is this something significant? Like, is it a big deal? I think it's not a big deal, but I do think we could come in a little bit more, maybe meet up with the 18-week over the course of the next few weeks. The positive we have is that the MACD is just getting back down to the zero line, and we don't have a lot of strength in the sell side. When we go to the daily chart, let's just zero in on this. We don't, I mean, the red, which is showing the strength of the sellers, is getting above 25, but we don't have selling real strength because the blue line, the ADX line, is still low. And we don't have any overrun to the downside at this point because MACD is still well above the zero line. These are all, I think, encouraging signs for this index as opposed to looking for something really violent. A lot of times when you're starting a big fall, you're going to get something violent off the top. Now, I'm saying this as the overall look of semiconductors, but when we start to dig down and look under the hood and see what the individual stocks, especially something like Nvidia that had the AI component and obviously has made a big run based on that, to me, this is a lot more extended. Look at what this has done on the monthly. You see how extended this has gotten? I mean, this is way, way overdone above this chart. And then we got really pretty far on a weekly basis. So we've got some room, even coming back down to like 380, you're still going to be above the 18-week at that point. You could be coming and testing the 18-week and be at 380. So I wouldn't necessarily be in a huge hurry to buy this first dip here. I think we could see this rally up and then come back down again. So I would be watching at the 18-week line, see what it looks like. See if we have any big red bars, then I'm going to be a lot less inclined if we to be jumping on that. If we break the MACD signal line from this extended above, then I'm probably not going to be all that excited about jumping in on the first pullback. Okay, so we're watching this. We're looking. We're kind of getting. I mean, I guess you could argue we've had some, more than an ABC at this point, but these are kind of small swings for this type of stock. So you could just argue this is one leg down. Maybe we get a rally up and then come back down. It's something to be on the lookout for, but we want to watch how this reacts at the zero line. I think that's our next key here. SMCI. So this is another one that's played along in the AI space. And look at how this is coming off the peak. So I don't view this as a buyable pullback. This is not just a pullback, in my opinion. We just made an accelerated run. Look at how accelerated that got. Just expanded, big move, got way extended above this line. MACD is really far from the zero line, and we got the ADX line up towards 70. And now look at the volume. Look at the volume off this reversal pattern. So is it going to turn into a straight down move? Probably not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this comes back up and tests, but don't think that this is going to be turning and just going straight up again. I think we've got a lot more work to do in this. It's also kind of confirmed to what's taken place on the monthly. Look at how extended this has gotten. This is pretty nuts. Okay, this isn't a stock we want to be jumping on. I would actually have been taking profits, recommending taking profits, and maybe even taking a little bit more off if we get any kind of a little bounce, just because I do think this is going to take a while. So Lockheed Martin has pulled back on the monthly chart, but it's overrun the MACD signal line. You see how this has taken place? So it's telling you that this is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, and the other thing that bothers me a little bit about this, on the move up, the ADX never got above 25, right? So we've made this new move, this new breakout without any real ADX confirmation on the longer term time frame. So when I see that, I'm a little less interested in playing this as a monthly pullback just because we don't have the strength here. Now, it's possible this could trade back up towards the 500 area, but I'm looking, if I'm going to get in this stock and I want to use the weekly to get me in and I'm watching this for move, I want it to break out above 500. I want to have some signs that are telling me that's going to happen. I don't know that I see that here, so I'd probably pass on this. LOW. Now, this to me is a little bit different. This has got a good look to the monthly chart. We just consolidated and we got back above this moving average, which is flatter. MACD is starting to confirm, okay, by crossing its signal line. And then look at this weekly chart. We made a nice breakout of this basing area. The overall pattern does look pretty good. Now, on this pullback, we've broken the 18-day. And MACD has already gotten to here, but again, we only have an A. You see what I mean? We only have an A. Is this going to just go A and then turn right back up? I think based on the fact that this rolled over, I would be more inclined to be thinking we're going to fail at the 18 and come back down. Now, it could form like that. It could form like that. Okay, or, you know, just your standard ABC like that. And we want to be comparing and watching here. But I think this pullback's too early. And one of the reasons why I say that is look at the size of this huge bar. It's just a massive declining bar. I don't think we need to be in a big hurry on this right now. So take your time, watch this, keep it on your watch list because the bigger picture pattern is definitely improving. Okay, here's DAL. Look at what's going on here. So this has got nice strength. It looks like that transports, right? The breakout pattern with good momentum behind it, okay? And we're getting our simple pullback. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is back down to the zero line and we don't have that much selling strength, but I'm really kind of feeling like it's not going to get right back up through this. Now, what you could do is draw in a trend line here, and if it goes back up through that, you can do it. Now, the thing I would guard you against here is if it just goes straight up, it's going to be overbought breaking the trend line. You're going to be up several days in a row. So what I'd prefer to see is something like this develop, or if it fails here, comes back down and then comes back up through here, I think that would be more attractive. But this is a stock you want to be watching here. I think this and UAL both have an interesting pattern to them. So keep an eye on it. But I don't think it's quite ready. Draw your trend line. See if this fails at the 18, which would be the optimum situation, and then comes back down and tests. And then on the turn back to the upside, that could be really attractive. Okay, so Ford. So let's just start with the monthly chart. So whenever we break a declining 18-month, I'm expecting it to pull back. All right. When you break a moving average, an 18 moving average on any time frame, you're normally going to come back and have some form of a test while this cups around. Well, what this did is it got through one bar, but then it didn't really follow through on the next bar. And so there's not a huge amount of strength here. What I do like about the monthly is what's going on with the MACD cupping around at the zero line. Okay, so that's a good sign. Now, let's look at the weekly chart. You see how this went up and then just retraced the entire up move? So if this is the breakout here, we made a move up and now we've retraced the entire breakout move. That's not really what I want to see. I'd prefer to get, use your fib grid. You want to be holding kind of the 50%, especially early on if you're going to get something going. So if this is going to make it, I think it's got to hold here and then turn back up and get back up through some of this resistance in the near term that's been created by this deeper pullback. Simpler way to do it is to wait for the daily chart to get going. Right now we're below a declining 18-day. There's nothing to do while we're below both of these moving average lines. All right. Look at Tesla. So again, now if we look at the strength of this up move, let's start with the weekly, okay? strength of the up move, and now we're getting our simple pullback. We're getting a pinch to form. We've got good momentum. The volume pattern looks pretty good. This is one you could think about. Now, it's not a long-term play because the 18-month is declining. The good news is the MACD is turning at the 0 line. So, I mean, for this to make another move to the upside, I think is very realistic. What do we need? Well, I think we need an ABC to form here, and I would kind of consider this all just a part of the A. I think this needs to do something like this. The MACD is already starting to getting close to overrunning. While the red is above, it hasn't caused the blue line, the ADX line, to get above 25. But it just looks like it's not going to turn and go and break out to the upside. Expect a move up and a pullback back down in some form of test, maybe even an undercut. And then as it comes back to the upside, you either have a trend line or getting back above the moving averages will be your trigger. You know, it could happen in any number of ways, but something to watch as this starts to approach the 18-week. It has a pretty attractive look to it. Let's look at WNC because I want to look at this from a bigger picture standpoint. Look at what's going on the long-term chart. So we're coming back to this breakout area. We had a nice move to the upside, pretty decent strength. The ADX is maybe not that great, but I love the overall pattern and we're pulling back. All right, now we've got the simple pullback on this time frame. Look at what's going on the weekly chart. We've got our A, B, C. See that? And we're not going to a new high. So we don't go to a new low, but we have reverse divergence here. You see how this is making a higher bottom and this is making a lower bottom? So I might be a little bit more aggressive. And if I get a big green bar here, I don't have to wait for this to be taken out. If I get a big green bar to the upside, I might consider that. I want to watch the volume pattern. I want to watch green DI. If we start to see that take place, I don't have to wait for a downtrend line break. If you don't get any of that, then just wait for the downtrend line to be your signal. Thanks for joining me today. My services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com, and my YouTube channel is Invest Like a Pro. If you have any stock requests, send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.